2, 1. Hello everyone and welcome to ZP Productions. So today there is nothing on my hand because you look at this image here. I recently had a hands-on with the EOS R5, and today's video is really me talking about what did I learn from this short little hands-on. I'm Richard and welcome to ZP Productions, and you know that I follow the EOS R5 quite a bit because it is one of the most anticipated Canon camera for a long time. Now, I had a hands-on recently with the EOS R5 at SLR Revolution. SLR Revolution, by the way, in Singapore. So if you are in Singapore, you can actually check out. They do have a test set there. Now, I asked and they say that I could actually take pictures from it, save in SD cards and what's not. So the most important part of this thing was actually I wanted to try out the dynamic range, but sadly none of the RAW converters could open. Even Canon's own DPP cannot open the RAW file. So obviously Canon is keeping it under wraps until closer to launch to release the relevant softwares that could decode their RAW. Pretty much I couldn't test the dynamic range as such, so let's move on from there. Now the next thing I tested was a rolling shutter. I will tell you that the EOS R5 in electronic mode, there is rolling shutter. Now I can show you this image here and you can see there is some rolling shutter. By the way, I'm panning really quickly. When I pan slowly, I don't notice it, so I don't think the rolling shutter is really bad, but in this test I did a really rough move and you can see that there is some skewing. Now just to note, as I say again, I'm moving really quickly with electronic shutter. So just take it with whatever is worth. I don't think it's that bad in real world, but there is something for you to test out when it happens. I did follow on with, of course, testing the IBIS. And the IBIS itself, I would say as it's okay. I think it's better than my GFX 100. Maybe on par with the A7 R4, at least for photography purposes. I would say as it's not worse off than the Olympus, if you ask me. So, my experience was that with the 85mm f1.2 RF lens, I could get about 4 or 5 shots when it is 140, so that is about half the focal length recommended normally for such a lens. And especially for a high resolution camera like a 45 megapixel, normally you need more than maybe 50% or twice the focal length to actually obtain a really sharp shot. So 80-90% sharpness within 140 is really respectable, and it's something my GFX could barely pull off most of the time. Now, if you want to compete with the A7R and of course the Olympus, then you have to go one stop lower at 120. And 120, I can tell you that I could get 3 out of my 5 shots really sharp. I mean, when I mean sharp means when I zoom in 100%, I feel that it's usable. It may not be like super duper tech sharp, but because, you know, due to focusing and what's not, but it is usable definitely, and your clients will not complain about them. And 120, as I say, is about 3 out of 5, and that is about 60% hit rate. Now, I went to try further 110, and that was disastrous. Out of the 5 shots, I could only get 1 sharp. So with the 85mm lens, I can say that you can easily get 2 to 3 stops of image stabilization. I would say as that lies pretty much very close to most of the other full-frame image stabilization system. It's pretty much also on par with Olympus. I don't think I have the most stable hand with Olympus. I never get below 120 before, so I think it's pretty okay. At least now with this high resolution camera and with this really awesome RF lens, there is an IBIS solution. Now 50mm or 85mm 1.2 with IBIS is fantastic when you want to use it in low light. But you can always get the EOS R6 for it, no need the EOS R5. So next thing I went on to test later is of course the autofocus. Now you can see in this short little clip here, the EOS R5 actually inherited some of the capabilities of the 1DX Mark III, I believe, and they have head AF. So you can see that this person is one of the shopkeepers there. They are walking away from me, so back facing me, and it focuses all the way. He turns to the side, it continues, tracks the head, and then turns towards me. You can't really see in this video, but what happened is that actually it's tracking on the eye thereafter. So the really nice part of the EOS R5 is that with the head tracking and then followed by eye tracking, you could pretty much track most humans really securely, I would say. For the purpose of portraiture, that is fantastic because, you know, if I do a spinning shot, I don't really need to care whether is it back facing me, front facing me. I just hold the focus. Once it turns to the front, hopefully the camera will lock onto the eye and take a shot. Now that is something I have to test out. As I said earlier in my A7R4 video, if you have not seen it, it's somewhere up in the link there. In the A7R4 video, I told you that with the A7R4, the focusing system is really quick, and when the person turns, it could actually catch up, lock onto the eye, and therefore give me a relatively sharp shot. Now I hope the R5 can do it, but without testing it out in the field, in the proper photo shoot, I cannot tell you the answer yet. Now, some other things that I want to talk about is that the R5 itself has about 64 shots of buffer for RAW and JPEG. What I mean by that is that if you don't put any cut inside, that is the maximum buffer, or you put a really slow cut inside, because there is the number 64 at the bottom right hand, and I was activating in RAW plus high HEIF files, I believe. And pretty much 64 is the limit. Now, of course, if you are using CFast Express or using a very high-speed SD card, you can write to the card as you take the shot. As such, Canon specification of 80 or 100 overshots is still correct, but you just need the cards fast enough to write off the buffer itself. And the very last thing I want to cover is the general handling and the body itself. Now, the body itself, if you look at all these shots here, it looks really like a 5D Mark IV, something like that. It's like a minified version of it. There's the back, the scroll wheel is back. So the nice thing of having back the scroll wheel now is that you could actually control the aperture, the shutter, and the ISO all using the 3 dials without escaping out into the menu or putting that aperture ring in front as the dial itself, because aperture rings on the lenses tend to be hit really easily compared to the dials, and I prefer the dial solution than the aperture ring. The aperture ring, usually I use it to put something else. And that's about it. Oh yeah, there is of course the dual card slot. Let me show you in these photos here. You can see the dual card slot. It is a CFast Express followed by a SD card. And that's about it for my hands-on session with the R5. I do have the RAW files, and I can tell you that the RAW files are about 41 to 46 megapixels, but there is not a single converter that could unlock it. So as I said, I cannot take dynamic range. The other thing that I never test, and I kind of forgot about it, is because of my wife was chasing me that day. The noise in low light, and that's something I may have a chance to test when next time I go to the shop there. I'll probably boost it up to maybe 6,400 or 12,800 and look at the noise from the JPEG level with everything reduced or everything closed down, especially for the noise reduction. And then till then, for my next video, hopefully maybe I will test the R5 again, or maybe even I may have an R5 on my hand itself. I'm still standing on the center line whether to get an R5 or R6, because to me the megapixels are not that important, but the dynamic range is very important. And the R6 is supposed to use a 1DX Mark III sensor, and the 1DX Mark III sensor is a lot better than the A9, for example, just slightly lower than the A7 and A7R. So to me now, at least I know what R6 is going to deliver, but without testing the RAW files, I couldn't test what is the R5. And that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this short little video. It is my hands-on session with the EOS R5. And as I say, if you stay in Singapore and you want to test out the EOS R5, you can head down to SLR Revolution to have a hands-on session. Until then, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.